This is DJ and PK on 97.5, 1280, The Zone, and The Zone Sports Network.
DJ, PK, and Jacob Noble joins us now from Sheridan Hoops and the ProBasketballTalk.com. Jacob, good morning.
How are you guys doing today?
We are doing well. Let's cut right to the chase. Let's get to what Jazz fans really want to know. Who is the worst team in the NBA? Who's going to have the most ping pong balls and the best shot at Jabari Parker or Wiggins or whoever ends up in February and March separating themselves from the pack?
Well, I think if you're a Jazz fan, you're in luck because I believe that's what you're hoping for. I think they do have the worst team because they have the worst veterans who aren't going to help you win in Richard Jefferson, and they have just a lot of young guys that are inexperienced. And in the NBA, you need the experience to win.
Yeah, there's no question that it's a league based on experience. With that in mind, if they get there, are we sure that somebody like a Parker is going to come out? Are there anybody going to throw us a curveball and maybe stay for another year?
You know, that's between the player and their families, but I think most of them have the eye on the cash prize at the end of the first year of whoever they choose to play or go overseas. But if they were, eligible to go right to the NBA draft, I think they would. But with the new rule, I think most of them just do the one and done. It's very rare you'll see one of these superstars stay back. It could happen. That's why I can't say it won't. Whether someone has a promise of the family to get a degree, which they do later on anyways, or if, one player might not like his draft position, if the early talks are that he's maybe slipping out of the top 10, maybe he stays, goes back to school for one more year. But it's highly unlikely that any of those top 4 or 5 prospects are going to stay.
Parker, Wiggins, Randall, those seem to be the 3 guys that most people are talking about. How would you rank the top 3 prospects right now? And is there anybody else you would move into the top 3 other than those guys?
No, I think you got the top 3 list hammered out, and things could change, especially when games become more meaningful. But if I had to rank them, I got to put Parker first. I think he's the more polished player as we see today. I put Wiggins number 2 because I think he has more potential and a better long-term career than the other 2 guys. He could become the best of them. And then Randall's got to be 3 just because he's behind the 2-headed horse of Wiggins and Parker.
Okay, assume for a second that the Jazz get Parker. With the nucleus that they have, forecast for me, where do you see them in 3 years?
They won't be winning immediately next year. It's still going to take time to grow. We've seen what happens with the Oklahoma City Thunder when they first got their first couple of stars. They still weren't a very good ball club. After they got Durant, they still ended up in the lottery the next year to get Russell. And then even after that, they were kind of a bottom-dollar team until their talent developed. One player out of those 4 or 5 that land on the team, they're not going to jump right into the playoffs, especially out in the West. The West is so deep, and you got so many good teams nowadays, like teams who we didn't think of, like Portland is now looking really good. It's going to still be a slow process, and I think that's going to be the wake-up call most fans get after this, lottery frenzy that's going on right now.
Obviously, people here are very tied to Jeff Hornacek, his days as a player, a little broadcasting, assistant coach. And now he goes to Phoenix. Are the wheels going to come off there at some point, or has Hornacek struck gold with the Suns?
I think they got something building down there. And don't forget, they got a new general manager as well, Brian McDonough, who comes from a long heritage in the Boston area for Celtics, under Danny Ainge. So he knows how to build a team, and he knows how to acquire assets. And that's what surprised me with the Suns, is how quickly they were able to turn it around. They had a bunch of veteran guys on the team, a couple of contracts they got rid of, and Marcin Gortat's contract they got rid of. And then they got, who I think is better than most of those lottery pick guys, and Eric Bledsoe. And he's finally getting to start a minutes. He's finally getting to become a star on a team, and we're seeing this kid blossom up before our eyes. Something that I think most people knew would happen, but he just needed the opportunity to get his minutes.
Okay, so we've seen him blossom, and he's a restricted free agent, as is Gordon Hayward, and there's a number of teams that are setting themselves up to have some cap space. Do you think either or both of those guys get big money deals from somebody else other than their original teams that they're on now?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think Gordon Hayward is being eyed by the Celtics just because of the Butler ties. He knows Brad Stevens. That kind of worries me because I don't think Gordon is worthy of a type of contract that he might get being a restricted free agent. But the good news for both the Jazz and the Suns is they are restricted free agents, so they can, match any contract that comes and retain those players back. Now, it's very interesting because I don't think any of the restricted class got signed prior to the deadline, which means that I think a lot of teams are looking at the unrestricted free agents that are coming up. We know Melo was obviously one of them, but if any of those Miami Heat guys jump in there, they could be unrestricted free agents as well. So it seems like people are putting themselves in a position to get the best prize, which isn't going to be the restricted free agents, but they'll have a backbone to fall back on with the, signing their own players to a good deal.
Jacob Noble joining us, Sheridan Hoops and the ProBasketballTalk.com. We were discussing the worst teams in the league, and you said the Jazz, you thought just combination of the veterans aren't very good and the inexperienced guys have some talent, but you just don't win with young guys in the NBA. Who are the other teams? The Bucks look like they can't score a lick. They're averaging less than 90 points a game. Who else is going to push the Jazz here for that bottom spot?
Earlier this season, I ranked the three worst teams to me were the 76ers, the Jazz, and the Bucks. And Philly has, been sipping a little bit of Kool-Aid lately, winning some games they shouldn't have. Michael Carter-Williams is looking much better than most people expected him to be, but they're still a bad team. They're still going to be at the bottom there with, the race for most ping pong balls. Another team is Orlando Magic. Aaron Aflalo has been playing out of his mind this year, and if he isn't playing out of his mind, they're possibly the worst team with record-wise right now, but he has been playing well, and they've been winning some games here and there. Those teams are, all in the 7 wins so far. You can't discredit either the two New York teams right now, the way they've been playing. Although the Nets have been playing better as of late, the Knicks kind of still up and down, but both those teams are terrible, which kind of shocks everybody. I don't think the Knicks are going to get better. I think the Nets will. And then other teams that, the Cleveland Cavaliers are supposed to be good. They haven't been that great so far. The Wizards are kind of up and down, still hanging around there. But out west, there really isn't much except for the Kings and the Jazz. Those are the two teams that just are doing what most people were expecting them to do, and everyone else is still kind of, got a hope for the playoffs. Like the Pelicans are, 500 ball. They weren't supposed to be this bad. It's a very awkward season so far. Everything we thought we knew isn't happening. I mean, you got a team like Boston. They were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, and here they are, getting closer to 500 every day.
On the flip side, there's a couple teams that have been pretty doggone good, one of whom is Portland, which may be a surprise. I think we expected Indiana to be good, and they are good. Do you think that we can have a realistic shot of seeing an Indiana versus Portland in the NBA Finals?
I don't. I think the Pacers are, the Portland Trailblazers rather, are a product of their schedule, meaning they haven't played a tough team that hasn't come off the second night of their back-to-back. So they're catching all those premier teams on their second nights of back-to-backs, which is just, a lucky storm for them. And there'll be tests later on. I mean, they haven't got bit by the injury bug. Every team gets bit, by one or two players some time down the road. It seems like the team that doesn't get hit by injuries is the teams that, go on and end up winning titles. But they're going to get hit, and they don't really have the depth, although their bench is better this year with the addition of Mo Williams. But they're still not, God forbid if Aldridge goes out for a few weeks, you'll see them pile up some losses quickly.
Jacob Noble joining us from Sheridan Hoops and the ProBasketballTalk.com. So if Portland has those issues, then we're right back to the Spurs and the Thunder again. They met in the conference final a couple of years ago. The Spurs, Kawhi Leonard, is giving some young legs, but the core of that team is getting older. Do you buy Oklahoma City as a two-star team getting to the NBA title?
I do, and it's for the other reasons. We know what we're going to get with Durant and Harden, and everybody sees you're going to get around 50 to 60 points every night for those two, and they're going to play their tails off. But what's interesting this year is Kendrick Perkins has found a way to become somewhat relevant. I know his stats are gross if you look at his box scores. If you look at, advanced statistics here and there, they're going to show you how terrible a player he is. But he's getting back to doing what he does, and that's defend the rim. He's back up the top 5 in opponent field goal percentage at the rim. He's being a force in the paint, which is why they got him. And Serge Ibaka started off slow without Russell Westbrook, and it showed that he really couldn't be a number 2, but since Russell came back and Ibaka's slowly gotten better over time, he's, getting back to his role and not being relied on to score so much. where he can get the easier baskets. And they got some young guys out there. Reggie Jackson's shown some stuff, filled in very well for Russell Westbrook. As a whole, their whole team has gotten better, and that's why you have to buy them as a potential candidate to represent the West.
Do you buy Houston?
I don't this season, but I think they'll figure it out. They're also they're a team where they're very good on paper. They run a particular style of basketball, but what worries me is when they get into a half court, because the Rockets like to run and gun. They like to get their shots up early. They like to clear the paint out, let Dwight work alone down there. And they like to surround the perimeter. And what I've seen over time is these great three-point shooting teams, they tend to fade off if they don't really have something else in their game. We saw the Knicks do it last year. They were shooting threes at record percentages. And then the law of averages came into play, and we saw the Knicks falter towards the end, and Bailey made it out of the first round.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time and your perspective.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
Jacob Noble from Sheridan Hoops and the ProBasketballTalk.com.